everyone, Bell is back, and I'm so excited. I'm finally doing another Q&A video. I love doing these things, but I haven't had enough followers before to really pull one off. So now I finally have more followers, and so I'm glad that you all wrote me your questions, and I've got I hope they're not too lengthy of answers, but I'm going to get to all of them. And so without further ado, let's get to it. But I must warn you, if you are not a fan of Harley Quinn, then you probably should leave, because most of the questions here pertain to that. But let's get started. The first question is not related to that character, but it is by a user named Harley X Joker Forever. I've seen them around YouTube quite a while, actually, for many years, actually. I've seen them around. And they asked, how do you feel about Tim Drake being kept in the Robin role? And why do you think writers are having trouble developing his own identity? And that is a very good question. I haven't really done, I think I talked a little bit about Tim Drake on a rant video a long time ago, but I haven't really talked about him that much, even though I do have a lot of thoughts about how his character has been treated. Okay, so to talk about the problem with Tim Drake, you have to go back to his creation, and you have to go back to the original Robins. Dick Grayson, as the original Robin, evolved over the years, and he became very involved in the Titans, and he was really gradually developing his own identity in a natural way, and that, as I understand, is what kind of brought about him cutting ties with Batman, kind of having a falling out with him, eventually coming back, and to this day teams up with Batman quite frequently as Nightwing, and that's how he kind of developed his own identity. And Dick Grayson, he was the Robin who forged his own path and did not become like Batman, and that was his character arc. Then you had Jason Todd, and he was sort of the failed Robin, the fallen Robin in more ways than one. Even on a meta way, he was the Robin who was introduced and people didn't like him. He was an edgier Robin, and that is what led to his death in comics. And they brought him back much, much later as Red Hood, and then he became a popular character and an anti-hero. But he's kind of the fallen Robin, even though he's usually aligned with the good guys as far as I've seen lately. But then you have Tim Drake, and he was introduced as sort of a response to what had happened with Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. Tim Drake was supposed to be the Robin, the one who chose to become Robin because he thought Batman needs a Robin, and the one who was supposed to represent that, Batman needs a Robin, and just be the solid good Robin and not have, I don't perceive him as having the baggage of the previous Robins and what happened with their relationship with Batman. Tim Drake, as I love his character, he's got some great stories, my favorite being the Detective Comics issue where he's captured by the Joker, but he was just supposed to be the solid good Robin that is Batman's Robin in response to what has happened with Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. But Tim Drake, I think that is kind of the crux of the real problem with him, is that he was introduced specifically to be the Robin, and he wasn't really given much to develop out of that, any pathway to really develop out of that. And you can see as time went on, when they try to give him a new identity, it's something derivative of Robin. It's Red Robin or Drake, which was terrible. They just can't seem to break him out of that identity because that's what he was created for. And it's not like Tim Drake kind of fizzled out and found a new identity for himself as Dick Grayson had, or Jason Todd was murdered by the time Tim Drake was brought in. You had Damian Wayne come in, and that was a heavily pushed character. He was pushed very hard, even though a lot of people, I remember I was one of them, did not like Damian Wayne when he was first introduced and when he was pushed very hard. So you just had Damian Wayne take over the Robin mantle, and you had writers and editors at DC that were more interested in pushing his character and his storyline as Robin. And Tim Drake, that's another reason. He just kind of fizzled out because they were more interested in Damian Wayne's story. But that's what I really think the problem is. The problem is Tim was created with the intention that he is the Robin, and that they never really developed him to have a different kind of an angle or an edge to him. And when they've tried to give him something else, it's been too derivative of Robin. It's been something that really just does not stand out. He just is having a very hard time standing out when these other people who have been Batman's sidekick Robin have something that makes them very distinct. Damian Wayne has his personality and his history with the League of Assassins. Jason Todd is the fallen Robin who was murdered by the Joker. Dick Grayson was the first Robin who forged Nightwing. Tim Drake is just having a hard time standing out in all of that. And I myself have a hard time thinking of a real identity for him to evolve into. I think that Damian Wayne is more of a character who could evolve into a new identity beyond Robin. And maybe Tim Drake could stay Robin, but it just feels like DC Comics wants every character who's been Robin to evolve eventually. But I think that that's a problem. And sometimes DC just has too many characters who might seem a bit similar. It's kind of like, I feel like just as the Marvel had their No More Mutants thing because they had made too many mutant characters, maybe DC needs to have a No More Robins arc where they get rid of some of these people who've been Robin. There's been more than 4. So it's a shame, and if you've been following this, not even just reading comics, but following this, you know that the recent Pride thing for Tim Drake, him coming out as being attracted to men, that never had anything to do with his character, and no, him being friends with Superboy is not the same as being bisexual. But DC cannot figure out an identity for Robin or Tim Drake, and so they've just decided, okay, we can't make him stand out. We can't get him beyond Robin. We can't make him stand out among the Robins, so he's the gay Robin. And we're going to bring him out every Pride Month and parade him around. And that's exactly what they're doing now. It's a shame, because Tim Drake is actually my favorite Robin, but they just can't figure out how to work with him in the mess of a million Robins that they've made. I spent a lot of time on that question. Thank you so much for writing that. Good question. Moving on now is a question from Magic and Maccabree, and they asked, do you think we'll be getting any more Elseworlds, Joker, and Harley comics anytime in the near future? Also, which comic era of Joker and Harley would you like to see in the Reeves verse? So that's a little bit complicated because it's kind of like in mainstream comics, they've decided that there's a rule now that Harley needs to be about girl power and independence. They're too afraid to step her back from that. At this point, I think it would, to DC, I don't know if they're thinking this way, but it's kind of the equivalent of stepping back from Iceman being defined by being a gay man now. Iceman was never, he was a straight guy, and he was a kind of a playboy in past comics, and then they made him gay, and that became his entire character, and no one likes that, but they can't walk back from that because other people would get very mad if you ever walked Iceman back to his original self, because you've made a big deal about that now. You've made a big deal about him being a progressive character, and that's what happened with Harley. You've made her to be this representation that abuse victims should follow, and in living their best life and getting out of abusive relationships. So it's hard to go back because you'll get people who perhaps don't read comics angry that you went back on your word with this. That's a little tangent, but because of that, we haven't had many mainstream Joker and Harley comics, only rarely when she's trying to get revenge or flashbacks, but they know that there's an audience for it, so for a while they were using Black Label to give us those traditional stories because they weren't canon and they could get away with it. But 2 things seem to have happened. One, Black Label seems to be fizzling out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not seen many new titles coming out for Black Label. Only on rare occasions when they want some adult content in, they'll just slap Black Label on it and call it a day. Another thing that's been happening, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, there's been a lot less Harley content lately. One of the reasons I think that we were getting some of those Joker and Harley stories in the past, like Harleen, for example, was because there was so much content that they were spitting out. And so, because the fan base of this character is very divided, they could decide, okay, this is a comic for these people, and this is a comic for those people. But I think that the character's popularity in general has dwindled thanks to DC's handling of her, and as a result, we're not seeing very many comics with her. There's only 1 comic out currently with her headlining it. There used to be like 5 or 6 coming out. So that's why we haven't gotten much of that. If we're gonna get anything soon for that, I would say that it would be in the upcoming Harley Quinn 30th anniversary comic that's coming out. They usually allow those to be a little bit more versatile in the stories that they tell and the eras that they tell and the kind of stories that writers want to write with the character. I'm just a little bit concerned because even when it came to the red, white, and black kind of a digital series that they did that was Elseworlds, we didn't really get much Joker and Harley there either. Sometimes there seems like there's a ban in Elseworlds stories to even let them appear together, because sometimes she'll be talking about him and that's what the story's about, but he's not there. Sometimes he'll kind of cameo, you'll see a hand and you'll know that he's there, but you won't actually see them together. I'm wondering what's going on behind the scenes with that, but I don't know. I think maybe in the 30th anniversary there'll be something, but I'm not sure. It seems like we've kind of hit a plateau with the character for DC where there's just not much content and not much change happening, and they're just kind of leaving her in one solo book that a lot of people don't like, and then just leaving it at that. So I'm like I said, not sure. Other question: what comic area of Joker Harley would you like to see in the Reevesverse? Well, obviously, what I would like wouldn't even be a comic. It would be to go back to, well, I guess it would be a comic. It would be go back to Mad Love. It would be going back to Batman the Animated Series and going back to what the way it started and just adapting those things. But I would really like them to, at the very least, adapt elements of the Harleen comic, because what I really like about that comic is it finally went into the depth of the character and started treating her as an actual human character, with a lot of dark stuff happening to her and not just worrying about her being a Looney Tune 24/7. And I really like that, and I really hope that Matt Reeves will see her as a human character and spend a lot of time in when she's not Harley, when she's Dr. Quinzel. I don't know if he's going to be comfortable with using that name. I would just like it if he would just take the character very seriously, go back to the beginning and see what was done there, delve into that further, just as Stepan Sejic did. I hope someone gives him that comic. And yeah, those are the comics I would like to see. I would also be interested in the Batman Confidential comic where she first meets the Joker, but I think I can talk a little bit more about that on another question. Okay, next question. It's a bit of a similar vein. What do you think they'll do with Harley if they put her in the Reevesverse? Do you think they'll finally tell her actual origin story, or do you think they'll just put her in on screen as Harley? And that is from a user who's just named Harley Quinn. Okay, similar vein, similar question. I was just getting into that. So Matt Reeves has been very clear that he's essentially giving us proto versions of the characters we know and developing into them the most iconic versions of the characters. That's what we saw with Catwoman and Batman and Riddler so far. Even the Joker that we saw briefly is supposed to be a proto version of that. So because of that, I'm pretty sure that we'll be seeing Harley as Dr. Quinzel first and see her develop into her actual identity. If what the rumors are true and we're going to see the Joker's story play out on the HBO Max Arkham Asylum shows first, then 100% that we'll see Harley as Dr. Quinzel and see her gradually be seduced and develop into her Harley persona. I think it's very unlikely we'll see her as Harley first because of the way that this universe is set up and the way that the Joker is coming into this universe, and so unless something drastically changes. I am completely going blank on what I was about to say. What do you think they'll do with her if they put her in the Reevesverse? Oh, I was gonna say, I'm curious if they'll adapt that story from, I think it was from Batman Confidential, where Harleen's like a bartender trying to get through college, and Joker's like this schlub criminal who comes in, and they kind of share a connection for a little bit. I'm wondering if they'll adapt that into this universe, since it seems like Joker's going to be a little bit more known before he becomes the Joker, but we'll see. That would be interesting if they did that. Okay, two more questions. The next one is from a user named Harleen Quinzel. Do you think Margot will come back as Harley Quinn again? I'm glad that you asked that. I have something to say about that. And they continue on to say, I hope not. Her roster says Gotham City Sirens, but that's it. Plus, no one said anything about it. Well, first of all, with the Gotham City Sirens thing, you have to look up on the official information of that. Be careful about things like IMDb. Those can be edited by anything. They have false information of them all the time. They have projects that are dead in the water on there. The official information we have for Gotham City Sirens is it's not happening. David Ayer, the last he said years ago was that project he was asked to do is not moving forward. Margot Robbie has never ever said she wanted to do that project. She essentially said she steered away from that for Birds of Prey. It's really the fans of Margot's Harley that keep pushing that this project is getting made next, and they were even pushing it on James Gunn that, oh, he's making that next. He's really making that next, and he's hinting at that. And to the point where he came out and said, no, that is a non-existent project. I've never even thought of doing that. So Gotham City Sirens is not happening. No one official is talking about that. That's something that Margot's fans have pushed that no one is anywhere near moving forward with. But to the question of do you think Margot would come back as Harley again, if you were to tell me to only give a yes or no answer, I would say no, because we had 2 movies that came out, and they took a long time to come out. After years of rumors of which movies were in development to capitalize on Margot's renditions of the character's success, 2 movies that came out that bombed. And no, you can't just use COVID as an excuse. Birds of Prey came out when COVID was not a factor for theaters yet, and other movies around it were doing so much better. And so on no uncertain terms, Birds of Prey was a flop. And the Suicide Squad came out, and of course it came out during COVID, but industry standards have already adjusted to what they expect the movie should do to be considered successful in the midst of COVID, and it didn't do that. It went far below that. So the Suicide Squad was also a flop, and that was the second movie heavily marketed on Margot's Harley Quinn is in this movie. Come see it, guys. You love this rendition of the character, don't you? Two bombs with her headlining it. But here's the problem. She's made it clear that she cannot sell a movie by herself as this character with a bunch of C-listers or D-listers around. But that version of the character has so far distanced itself from Batman and Joker and was never really well established with those characters in the first place. You can't really go back now. And I don't think that they would want to, because I think that at this point, the DC and WB execs would be like, why would we keep running this character into the ground trying something that's clearly not working? So, and there's no Suicide Squad sequel that's planned or going to come out because of that bombing. So it's like, where is that actress and character even going to appear next in the DCEU? The only likely place is maybe in a cameo in the Batgirl show, or, movie, or one of the James Gunn shows. But the thing is, everything I understand about Margot Robbie is she is extremely busy as an actress, both on films, as an actress, and as a producer, just working constantly. And there were rumors about her appearing in Zack Snyder's Justice League as a cameo, and that something couldn't be worked out and with that. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me, because the point is she's a very busy actress, and I don't really see her having time to do something smaller like HBO Max cameo. If she did it, it would probably be an obligation, just as a friendly obligation to James Gunn or something like that. But there's more than that. I think that the character has really proven that it does not have the audience, not the character, but the actress paired with the character. I think it's proven it doesn't really have the audience they thought it did, and I think that the Batman coming out and having all these fan castings and speculations of who's going to play Harley next is just more to push Margot Robbie away. I'm not trying to say that in a bad way, but it's more to make her think maybe my time as this character is done, maybe I should move on. And you even kind of saw her saying that, kind of just going back and forth a bit in the Suicide Squad interviews. 1 minute saying she'd like to take a break as a character, 1 minute saying she's back on board, 1 minute talking about how at the same time she'd really like to see other actresses embody the character. So I'm going to guess that it's not far off her mind, and it's been the longest time. It's been well over 6 months that we've heard any. We haven't even heard a peep of a rumor about where Margot's rendition is going to appear next. And that is the longest time we've ever gone, because ever since Suicide Squad, the first one, came out, we've just had constant rumors about these projects in development and what she's going to appear in next. And there's been nothing. So I don't see Margot's Harley appearing again, unless it's on something very small in maybe the Flash movie or an HBO Max thing, but we've really heard nothing about it. I don't know if they'll maybe slip in, because they're reworking the Flash yet again, maybe they'll slip in a little send-off for her there, but it just seems like they're probably at a point where they're tired of just beating a dead horse, and that they might want to move on from that. They might even have plans at this point, thinking about when the character is going to appear in the Reeves verse. So, no, I don't think she's going to appear again. Last question. Would you write for DC to fix Harley if given the chance? And that's from Basket Case 420, who is a loyal viewer. Thanks for your question. Absolutely. And I've thought about that in the past. I've thought all the things that I would do with this character and all the stories I would want to tell with her if I could write for DC. And I have written stories for the character. I would love to go back and write more of her backstory, because I just feel like she's never really... I think part of that's given me a taste for that is I'm just tired of her constantly being in skippy, crazy, poppy Harley Quinn mode, and I like going back to the human elements of the character. I would like to write more about her as more of a human character and see her out of costume a bit more, and see more of struggles with her sanity rather than using it as a joke 24/7. Definitely, I would try to develop her relationship with Joker more, because it's never gotten much development in comics, unfortunately. because writers just really haven't known what to do with it. So yes, I would 100% want to write for DC. Comics or movies. I do write screenplays on an independent level, and I've gone to school for that. So I would love to do that, of course. And sometimes I wonder who out there is going to write the character correctly. Sometimes I feel like I better get in there and do it because no one else will. So yeah, that's just a little insight to my thoughts on that. Thank you guys for all the questions. I'm so glad this video was only 20 minutes long and I didn't go so much longer. I think my next video will probably be my Court of Owls review. I'm also going to be on Studio Jake pretty soon talking about the Oscars. So keep an eye open for that, and follow me on Twitter for those updates at Gesturebell, and it's at Teresa Campagna, and I will see you guys next time.